Again, the extraordinary video from the University of California at Davis, Cal Davis, the campus police chief, placed on leave, 2 officers suspended after the officers acted like terrified children, seeing an ant on a kitchen floor and emptied cans of repellent, in this case pepper spray, on students who were posing no threat. As promised, more on this story with Dominic Gutierrez, a UC Davis student and protester who was pepper sprayed last Friday as he tried to shield other students from the police. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you. When
the police approached on Friday, had you been warned that they might use force? Did you have any indication that any of that was coming?
No, I was surprised. We'd been warned that some people would be arrested, but pepper spray came as a shock.
What happened when they so nonchalantly opened, as I suggested, those cans of pepper spray as if they were, going after insects?
It was chaos. Everyone was screaming. I was actually on the other side of the circle, and that's when I ran over and tried to cover the people with my sweatshirt. A lot of them are good friends, so it was really scary to see. I could just hear screams, and I could see pepper spray mist coming, and you could smell it. It's really pungent.
Yeah, you can.
Very strong.
Yeah, you can see some of the just photographers who were lined up in another line that's sort of at that right angle. They're in the back of the screen there. Some of the photographers are retching just from the smell as they try to get an image of this horrific event.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't just the people directly in the line. It was people all around because it, dispersed and got in people's lungs. It got in my eyes. It got in a lot of people's directly into their throats. It was pretty horrific.
Dominic, the chancellor said students' health and safety was at risk because of the encampment. Does that make any sense to you?
None whatsoever. We'd been there for less than 24 hours, I believe, or actually just over. And I mean, it was a bunch of tents. There was no kitchen, no stoves, no bathrooms. People were using campus bathrooms and bringing food from off campus. It was completely sanitary. We weren't blocking any walkways. We wanted to make sure that other students could use the quad as well. I just don't buy that argument at all.
Occupy Wall Street went from a footnote to a headline when the pepper spray was used on 4 women protesters who had already been hemmed in behind some plastic netting, and the video went viral. The pictures from the pepper spraying in Seattle of the 84-year-old protester and the woman in Portland square in the face with the pepper spray last week, that went worldwide. What's the effect on Occupy at UC Davis been since this event took place?
Well, when we started, there was a group of maybe 400 students, and then whenever we'd occupy overnight, because we'd occupied an administration building prior to this, it'd be maybe anywhere from 100 to 20 students, depending on the time of night. Now, there was thousands of people on the quad today. It's really incredible, and they're all very excited to work with us as fellow students and university faculty.
What is the outcome at this point in terms of what the university is doing? Because it appears that the chancellor has held 6 or 7 different positions on this since the event. Should she resign? Is the campus police chief viable at this point?
Right. I think it's all the way up the line. If something happens and you're culpable for it, you should. I mean, she should really step down. The campus police chief should step down. They all knew that was going to happen. They ordered it to happen. I mean, it wasn't one decision made up high. It was made by every single one of them, starting with Katehi when she told the officers to remove the tents. Then the police chief called in riot police. And then Lieutenant Pike decided to use pepper spray. So, I mean, I think all of them need to go.
Dominic Gutierrez, a student at UC Davis, part of the group that was pepper sprayed on Friday. Great thanks for coming on the program and bearing with us tonight.
Thank you.
There's an overarching issue here, of course, not just at UC Davis, not just on college campuses, but perhaps especially there. These are campus police. Why do they have riot gear? Who told them to treat the students as if they were dangerous, violent individuals who needed to be pepper sprayed? When did we decide to militarize campus police? My next guest is a UC Davis professor with some insight to the protesters who took that vicious attack peacefully. Some of them are his students. In fact, he describes them as, quote, top students, adding that among students he knows, the higher the grade point average, the more likely they are centrally involved in the protests. Bob Ostertag, professor of techno-cultural studies and music at Davis, who wrote about the incident today in a post on the Huffington Post that looks at the militarization of campus police. Thank you for your time tonight, sir.
I'm delighted to be here to discuss such an important issue.
Indeed. You wrote that the way police are handling the Occupy protest constitutes a radical departure from the past. I mean, how is it different? Because as fortunate, obviously, as it was, and as unfortunate as it is to have to say it, I mean, we've seen peaceful protesters abused by police before, whether it was water hoses or dogs or, bringing in the National Guard. What's so radically different about this?
Well, we saw police dogs and water hoses in the 1950s and 60s during the Civil Rights Movement and during the anti-Vietnam War movement. But from the 1970s on, you know, after Kent State and after some of the most dramatic police abuses of that era, you know, things de-escalated. And we saw the anti-nuclear movement of the 1970s. We saw the movements around Central America, non-intervention in the 1980s, the movement against apartheid in the late 80s, the early 90s. All kinds of movements have taken place in our country since that time that have not seen police dogs and this kind of violence. In fact, just over the last couple of weeks in Washington, D.C., over 1,000 people were arrested protesting the Keystone XL pipeline. Over 1,000. And not a single police baton was raised, no one was pepper sprayed, no assault rifles were brandished. And you know, the Washington police actually have to worry about things like terrorism.
Right.
And they managed to make a distinction between people exercising their First Amendment right to speak in public and something that actually requires a SWAT team response.
All right, with the proviso that we're going to stop showing the video because I think people have seen it enough by now. Has something changed also in terms of what the police are taught? Are they taught now to assume that there's violence or even some lethal threat facing them at all times, even when it's people sitting down on a sidewalk on a campus?
Well, you know, I'm probably not the one to speak to what police are taught, but I can say that I strongly believe. You know, Davis is not a hotbed of student radicalism. Davis is a suburban campus.
Well, we'll be right back.